I'm Angela Kelly Robeck, host of the Empowered Principal Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, welcome to the High Tech Podcast. I immediately regretted that intro.
Saying it again.
100% honest, those who are listening, I immediately regretted that. You were joined by Josh Swartz and William Millingworth, the host of the High Tech Podcast. And if you're like, wait, what? Be like, sorry, click the High Tech Podcast for the host. Hello.
Yeah, this isn't Smartless. Sorry, you clicked the wrong podcast this time.
Meanwhile, someone's like, this was not what I thought it was. Anyway, we're back for another week. I was trying something different, man. You know, you told me one of the last episodes recently that I do like the hey thing or whatever all the time. So I was like, nope, not this time, and I immediately regretted it. Hello, not the golden.
We're gonna have to like workshop some things.
Yeah, I'm gonna be workshopping some things so be listening in the next couple episodes. Be like, what's Josh's intro?
What's coming?
You know. And
I love that. Least... Hook them in, you know?
Keep them. You want them to come back every time. That's how we bring people into the educational podcast.
You gotta come for Josh's intros.
You come for the educational knowledge, but sometimes you get lame intros. Hashtag High Tech Podcast.
Perfect.
Anyway, welcome. We are here for another week. We got some great topics planned. But before we jump into the meat of the episode, if you've been listening to us for a while, just our regular opening. You know, you can start.
Wait, we have an
grabbing
opening?
Your coffee. Yeah, we have an opening.
We do things.
Anyway, if you listen to this podcast, you're like, man, I wish I could talk to these people a little bit more. You know, because that's how most people react to us. You can check us out online, either at Twitter at High Tech Podcast, or you can email us if you still do that by inbox@hightechpod.us. And you can also check out our website. We have one, hightechpod.us.
.us.
You can also I was wondering how long it was going to take. You know, this is probably a couple people like, guys, we get it. You don't agree about how the end of your URL goes. Stop it.
I like that it looks cool and it's like readable, like hightechpod.us. It's so cute. But it's like us. Somebody could hear that wrong. I don't know. It could be like
I don't know.
They could do like AS or ES or something.
I guess.
So US.
Is that an end you're allowed to put on a URL? Is .as a thing? I'm pretty sure it's not.
Who knows?
I don't know. We don't know. We got this domain because it was cheap.
Amen.
Preach. So check us out there. We have fun episode pages, things like that, where we put resources. Sometimes video. I just put a video on recently, which was cool.
That Miro episode page was baller.
Yeah, Miro episode page. You're like, somebody listening's like, guys, that was forever ago. We're like, yeah, we know. We record way ahead of time. So anyway, check us out there, and you can hit us up there. You can hit us up on Twitter or our email to send us our animal picture that we always ask for.
Animal of the week. Animal
of the week. Yeah, that didn't work either.
We're not synced. We just got to sync up next time. That's all.
We're not there, I don't think. You know?
We'll try again.
Anyway, I don't know if have I asked for a penguin yet? Do we know? We asked for that? Okay.
No.
Well, I would like a penguin dressed like a pirate. Okay?
Oh, perfect.
All right? I'd like a penguin dressed like a pirate. That's
pirate penguin.
Yeah. So hit us up or email or Twitter, either one of those places, or mail it to us if you know our address. That's weird. If you do,
I'm gonna wake up.
We don't publicize that.
I'm gonna wake up tomorrow morning to knocking on my door. I'm gonna open the door and somebody's just standing there handing me a picture of a penguin pirate. Like, what?
I kind of hope somebody actually sends me a real penguin with dressed up as a pirate. If that is a possibility, hit me up. Okay, because I would love a Jack Sparrow penguin.
Probably only break a few laws doing that.
Or I'm sure it's in city regulations. Anyway. What are we talking about today? This week, this day.
House?
A brick house?
She's mighty. She's letting it all. No. We're talking about building the house, aren't we?
No.
Am I at the bottom of the darn page? It's been a while.
You made me double check because I was like,
been a while
wait a
since I've
second, did
done
I
that.
get my episodes wrong? No, we are not.
I'm gonna
talking
save
about
that one though. We're gonna use that same transition for next episode.
Yeah, listen in, folks. It's gonna come again. No, we're talking about we're talking about what is an absence in an online course.
Like, why
It's
is
kind
Will's
of like-
brain absent?
Yeah, it's like if you didn't show up. You know what counts as not showing up in an online course?
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're talking about. Wow, we're making a lot of sense today. This is good.
Fantastic episode. What is an absence in an online course? We think that this idea means something because we are so used to it's status quo, it's modus operandi, it's what we do in the physical classroom. We have to track if students are there or not, right? If they walk in the room, sit down in class, and listen to me the entire time, present. If they don't show up at all, absent. And then, of course, the famous tardy. Is that something we need to track online? We are just coming off the heels of the LMS's surveillance series, duo continuation, part 1, part 2. I don't know what you want to call it.
Part 1, 2. I don't know. What do we call it? It's not a series because we've decided that's
not
3 episodes or more.
3 or more.
But two is an endeavor.
Excuse me for hold on. Wind that back real quick. We are just off the heels of the LMS surveillance endeavor, and we'd like to,
logical.
Of course, consider the impact of like that kind of data, right? That kind of data could really make up what we understand of an absence or not. Are the students in course? Are the students clicking on things? Are the students sure, but what is an absence? Why do we need to track this? A lot of folks, I think, are bringing this idea to the online course from the physical room, and they feel like, I did it in class, so I need to track attendance online. I think there's probably also some accreditation things. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, yeah, there definitely is. I mean, as an institution, there's a couple things you come across, right? So, like, most institutions need to track if the student attended in the first week for sure.
Yep.
Because they like our institution that I'm at, like we have to get that data pretty quickly. Because if they didn't, they usually try to drop the student by a certain time so that they're not charged for the course.
Yeah.
And then like
specifically in your online courses, right?
Yeah, specifically in online courses.
Yeah.
Like, and so like financial aid needs to know like last day of attendance is what they call it.
Yep.
So they absolutely have to track that. And then from accreditation as well. I mean, you're supposed to be, tracking that students are present. There's a couple different... In online, I will say, I think this is why we wanted to talk about it. Because in online, it's murky. There's like, after you get past that first week thing, it's kind of like,
So what is attendance? Are they there?
What is attendance?
What matters?
Different institutions have definitions. Different people in the institution have different definitions. If an institution doesn't have a definition, different offices, human beings, and instructors all have different definitions of what
the
is
wind
online
has a different definition.
Oh, yes, so I feel like it is that thing, where it's kind of it's not as clear like it's a face-to-face classroom where it's like, oh, they didn't show up, they're not there.
Yeah.
Right. In online, it's a little bit different how we define it.
So let's set the stage a little bit. In a physical classroom, we immediately assume if they're there, they're listening at least. If they're not there, they didn't listen. Yeah. So that is a good indicator of whether or not the students are going to understand content, be prepared for tests, be able to demonstrate they have mastery. So those are kind of the values or the principles behind it, right? We want to know that they have as much access to information as possible. We want to know that they've received as much support as possible to do well. We want to know that they are physically present and getting their money's worth, I guess, right? Yeah. So there's a financial part, there's some altruistic pedagogical pieces to it. So from that stuff over to online, I think we still want the same things, right? And even what you're saying off of your institution, like tracking the first week stuff, that's the financial thing. But we're also looking to make sure that the students, are getting through our classes well enough.
Yeah.
My question.
Just to add in there real quick.
Yep.
There's, I think, from beyond like the first week thing, a lot of times it's also a care piece where like you want to know, is a student participating? Are they engaged in the course? Things like that. We've talked about engagement before on this podcast. But this idea of like you want to know if they're present and what's going on. Like that's gonna be telling if there's gonna be problems later on.
Right.
It's gonna. I think I've told my story about like one of the first online courses I took. I really didn't care and literally did nothing for the course. The entire course. I paid for it and I failed. It was a horrible, and I mostly blame myself. But like literally no one did anything. Like no one was like, "Hey, are you alive?" Like no, I was left in the course until its end.
You bought a meal. They brought it to the table where no one was sitting, and they just let the meal sit there.
Yeah. So like that's
until the store closed.
A horrible story, and most institutions don't want that to happen. So that's why we define.
Well, but you brought this up on the point of care, right? Like we as teachers want to care. We want to be present for those people, for our students. We want people to learn. So having them there, whatever that means, whether it's physically or now as we talk about this through, like what does it mean for them to be there, quote unquote, digitally, is an indicator that, okay, they're present. I know they're present. I know that there's something that you can be doing to reach them, and I care that they're learning. So I like that, and you're bringing something even more like social emotional about it as opposed to just business.
Yeah,
because it's really easy. It's really easy at the end of the day, bottom line, business just to check are they there or not, and then still get their payment. Like they could still get this free lunch if you will. Get some money for you spending money on something you don't eat or you don't get anything out of. After you've paid, they don't have to care. Yeah. The teacher doesn't have to care. The institution doesn't have to. But enough people do that and start losing money to something that they're not getting value out of. Of course, that's where the consumer issues get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the question is that we've been bouncing around this. Everybody's like, okay, cool. Those are the ideas of why we do it. But what do we actually count as an absence? So I think maybe the way to talk about this is what we've seen. Yeah. Maybe. I feel like you guys are the people listening are like, do you guys have an outline? No. Out
what? I'm out of here.
What is that?
I can just leave.
We picked the topic and we're just talking about it right now. I think I've seen a couple different ways, right? I think most often the definition people eventually get to is like, did they submit something this week? Right? Like, and whether that's now some will get really specific. I think I've seen some institutions who have been like, it has to be, they have a discussion each week.
I was about to say, so like some weeks it's literally the forum. Yeah.
Yeah. Did they participate in the discussion forum? Some will be less specific. Just like, did they submit something? Like, because obviously every week in an online course, no matter the length, you usually got multiple things due. So like, did they submit the paper for that week or a journal or whatever you have due? Like, as long as they submitted something, they've done it. I have seen other institutions who have tracked, like, and this is a little bit more rare, but I've seen other institutions who have tracked, like, clicks and the amount, did they log into the course?
Time on page and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm just going to be upfront right now. We're not even going to play around the different ideas before I get too far into my opinion. That's bull. So like everybody was like, did they log into the course? Okay.
I have issues with this, right? Like I'm in corporate now, and so like I'm ready. It's amazing, when somebody reached out to me, hey, blah 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 course, what's the average time to completion? Well, if I look at my peaks and my valleys here, I got people who get through it as the minimum possible time. I know some of them is 15 minutes. I've done it myself. But some of them take 5, 6, 10. I've seen people who sit in the course for 25 hours to complete something that someone who sat down and just did it in one shot did it in 1 hour and 15 minutes, right? So like time on task and just that number counting up, literally 25 hours is not an actual number. Yeah. And those systems are just still not perfect. They don't actually get meaningful information. We don't know if the person actually sat there and did it.
This is my hot take. Okay? I don't know how hot of a take it is.
Spicy.
They are utterly useless. I'm sorry. Like, I have seen students in a course before, and it said they've spent like 308 hours in the course. Okay? Listen here. They clicked open that course and they just never closed it on their computer.
They walked
They're afraid
away.
They'll forget how to get back there if they close it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's the thing. Okay, so let's just be upfront right now.
Yeah.
LMSs will try to advertise you in the beginning that you can track all this stuff, and together you can figure out how engaged your student is. I think time counters are useless. I think they're ridiculous. The only thing that I think they can sometimes be helpful on is quizzes that are timed, that are set that way, but that's a whole different conversation. That's not about absence. That's more about just like quiz tracking and dynamics and assessments.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think it's that way. So those are the couple ways I've seen. One I think is stupid. I'm curious have you seen any other ways? Like, am I living in a bubble? Is there something else I'm missing?
So like the first two we've hit here definitely are like the standards in my opinion. Like there's just like a weekly forum or clicks like time on page. I've seen some folks really get to this idea of like not just one weekly forum, but like a Monday event, a Friday event, and a Sunday event.
Like
whether that's
specific events.
Right. There's something that they've got it. So it's like a forum on Wednesday, and that's Wednesday's class. And then there's maybe another forum on Wednesday, and that's Friday's class. Sorry, on Friday, and then Friday's class. And then Sunday they have a paper due, and that paper counts for a class. Like they try to make a learning activity equivalent to a class period, right? And in the beginning of COVID instruction, right? That was actually really common. Some folks were getting on and doing like Zoom class Monday morning, Zoom class Wednesday morning, and then they'd host a forum on Fridays for the third Zoom class. It's like, no, that's not, you're not actually still teaching a third hour that week, my friend. You could do that. I'm not saying not, but most of them were not. So that to me is like maybe the three stereotypes or archetypes I've seen. Just one thing a week, like do the forum, that's your attendance. Make sure you're clicking in and they're monitoring hours on task, quote unquote, or turning activities into a class period. And so like some of those weeks then are going to have those three things, like a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday activity, and then still some greater project or assessment due. Like, some of those weeks start to get really packed, especially with 6 and 8 week courses where, people are just compressed in on each other.
Yeah, they're flying through it. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I've seen that too, where people do like specific scheduled stuff. And obviously like we're kind of talking online courses here. So like it is becoming more popular now to host like a synchronous session during your
right, just get on Zoom and connect.
Now most are not. I think it's becoming more and more popular to do like a Zoom session where like it's not technically required. Like there's some kind of thing you do. If
you can watch the recording if not.
Yeah, like because understandably, and this is where I get to where I think we need to be careful about how far we go into this organized scheduling of absence in online courses. Is the whole benefit of online courses that people are going for are more flexibility in schedule. So, like, I'm sorry, in my opinion, if you create an online course and then you create all of these sessions every week that they have to be a part of, like...
You've defeated the purpose.
defeated some of the purpose, in my opinion, of online courses. I mean, online has a lot of... We've talked about this before. It's not the perfect model. I know there's weaknesses. Yeah. But one of the reasons it's so helpful for people is because while there are due dates and things like that, the in-between of those due dates, in the way it works in an online course, a student can be at least flexible about what hours of the day they... work on their work. And
that's where I think the forum approach is one of the more equitable styles. Like you have to have done this by Friday at midnight, or by Wednesday at midnight, by Friday at midnight, by Sunday at midnight. Like, okay, like they don't have to get on at 8 a.m. Friday and do it for 2 hours, right? It's like, do this activity that should take you this amount of time by each of these due dates. I'm not against that. I think that there's good ways to do it and there's better ways to do it. Most folks are not even doing them good. So I'd like to see that improved in practices. And folks, of course, this is just Josh and I from our experiences so far. There's plenty of folks who probably do this well and mean well. And there's probably plenty of folks who mean well and still don't do it well. We hope that the students, ultimately the goal is that folks are learning.
Yeah.
But, this absence thing, it is a part of metrics. There is a lot of tracking that gets back to you know, an element of this I forgot to mention at the definition level, but like, okay, we said accreditation, we've said some of the like cost and things, but this was always really important for students who were working with like the GI Bill, like military students. They have to like document everything that they're doing and their hours on task and stuff. And so I remember doing audits at your institution when I worked there on students, like how much, you know, and it was coming back to those pages, like how much time did they actually spend on these things? Like,
yeah, we don't do that anymore. Mainly because I'll refuse. So
Josh says no. I need to learn the power of
I'll
no.
be like, that's the hogwash.
I still don't say no. I get no said to me a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, so like, and then I guess here's the thing. Like, let's take out of what we've seen, and let's just get right to the question. Well, what do we think? Maybe a better way to word this is like, what isn't absence in an online course?
Yeah. What does presence look like?
So let me blue sky my opinion.
Bring
about
it.
This, okay.
Love it.
Because here's my
Is this
vibe.
going to be Bob Ross style? Are we going to have happy little trees?
No, because I never talk like that. I'm not a quiet enough, nor I need less caffeine in my body if I'm going to talk like Bob Ross. Which that never happens. So
He don't even want that.
No, we don't want that. So here's my opinion. I see a lot of institutions moving towards this model of like, okay, did they submit something each week or like a discussion forum or something like that to at least give some flexibility? And if they did, then they're counted as present, which I think is fine. I think works to a certain extent, but my real, I think, hope and what I wish institutions would move more towards, and instructors aren't going to like this, because it requires effort. Okay, hold on. That sounded very mean. No, I didn't mean that instructors don't mean that. I mean like extra work on top of what they're already doing.
Right.
Is I personally think the ability to state whether a student was present or not should be put in the hands of the instructor in the online course. Okay. Now, however that looks, like if you got a tool, your instructor can report back up that the student was present, or anything like that. I think there's some flaws with that because instructors will forget to do it,
or they'll just mark.
So I totally understand that, or they'll mark P for present and they won't actually check. I totally get that. All of those flaws, though, are with an instructor not doing their job, not necessarily the system not working.
Yeah.
I think the problem with just tracking submissions or like setting a discussion forum each week is I think it grates up against some of the flexibility you want to provide in an online course, and is not fair to like students who they get behind and the instructor figured out a way to make it work with them.
Right. No, that's a good point.
You need a system to communicate that information up. And like, and I've seen some who have tried to do both, like they track information, but then they pull stuff from instructor. But it always gets super complicated when they start doing that. It's like, we're going to track these 3 things, but then also if you message your instructor, that counts too. And it's like, yeah, but you guys aren't coordinating that nearly as well as you think you are.
This is one of my tattoo ideas. Okay. Compliance is not a system.
Yeah.
Compliance is not a system. If you are trying to get people to comply to your procedure, you are not running a system. It is not systematic. It is not a method. You know, making sure that the faculty check in and report up the things that they're supposed. That kind of compliance structure is not going to work, and it just doesn't. Humans do not comply. We are donkeys in 2-legged bodies. Okay, we are stubborn. We have long faces, but funny stuff aside, like one of the things I really like about your suggestion is it does leave the autonomy on the instructor. It leaves a lot of space for opportunity to handle it appropriately. I think what that needs though is a system, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But I've seen it almost done before. And it's usually red flag systems. So I don't like that it's on that side of the aisle or on that side of the coin, wherever you want to put it. But it's like, if this student is doing horribly, I mean, sometimes it's about safety, says something that makes you concerned for their
like
safety.
A student concern situation.
Right.
Yeah.
You can submit something to raise a flag. I almost think in an online course, attendance should be similar, where it's like everybody's present that week unless you say they're not. You know what I mean? Like you go in to say like, you know what? John posted 1 word this week and it wasn't even relevant. Like, not attended. You know, like everybody else is fine. They they did their stuff. They just checked the boxes. Like, it is what it is. They showed up. They did the work. You could go in there and say something about their attendance, or it wasn't good enough work or whatever. That should affect their grade on the assignment. It shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that matters to everything else. But if somebody doesn't show at all, or their interactions are completely, like, and this is true of a classroom, right? I've known faculty in the physical classroom to say, well, yeah, you're sitting there, but you've been on your phone the whole time. That's why I marked you on not attended, right?
Yeah.
Or you disturbed the class and I've asked you to leave. You're no longer in attendance.
Yeah.
Right? Like, those kinds of things do happen in the physical classroom. So I almost see it all as a red flag approach for the digital space. Everybody's in attendance because they signed up for an online course. It's asynchronous. It's not meant to be at a specific time, unless there's an issue. Then I can flag this guy did not come this week.
And again, it allows then the instructor to make judgment calls on that, because they're the one who should be the closest to what's going on. The amount of times I've seen like students get unenrolled from a course because they didn't submit on time, but like they went to go submit like 2 days later and they're not in the course anymore, and then they're all angry, and the instructor
you probably get tickets like that, right?
And like it happens all the time, because that's part of the problem too with just an automated system. People are not robots. We've said it over and over again. Listen, I'm all about automations. The tool we're going to talk about today has a lot of that in there, and I've automated a good portion of our lives.
I really can't wait to clear the air on that one, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll be so ready. We'll whip out the table, sit around it, talk a little bit about it,
have a little drink and a dinner.
But still back to absent part. So it gives some of that human component to it. Now I will say this, like, as an instructor, how do you judge if someone has been absent or not? I think it depends on the design of the course. But I think what I would I'd be looking for is, like, let's just make it real simple. As the instructor, did they appropriately engage with the content that week? Okay, and I know that might appropriately is like, well, that's a little vague too. But I think it depends on what we're talking about. Like, if we're talking,
it's right,
like,
though.
A discussion and an assignment, like that's what you're looking for. Like,
right.
In the end of the day, in an online course, it isn't the same as the physical course where, like, they just walk into the classroom, they're there, we count them as attended. It's a little bit different. An online course, I feel like we need to be a little bit more nuanced in saying, like, okay, did they engage with the content or engage with me in some way that week, for whatever reason? Like, they may have engaged with me as the instructor to say, hey, listen, something, emergencies come up, things like that, I need an extension on these 2 assignments. And we give them that extension, we work with it, but they've been present that week. Because they've been engaging with me as the instructor to try to make sure that their course is being taken care of. Now, if that happens for 3 weeks in a row, I'm going to start having some problems and throw red flags.
Right. Throw a red flag. No,
yeah.
I was brought back to, as you started on this appropriate point, and like, maybe there's different things for different courses, to a class I took that was a studio course. The whole thing was projects. It was 4 big projects. That was the entire course. They were thematically tied together around learning design, content design. Mm-hmm. But I think he might have had some forums in there, but frankly, 9/10 of the legitimate work was projects. And you know what? You might not see much work being done when I'm working in Adobe, when I'm working in Premiere, when I, like, these platforms and things that I was coding websites in Dreamweaver, right? Like, you weren't seeing that work. He built check-ins, right? And so there's ways to be considering your attendance to, like, I want to see your work every week while you have 3 weeks to deliver this project. You can set that kind of work up. We recommend that. That's actually a good scaffolding. But in another sense, he didn't need attendance. If we delivered the project, we did the work. And then he graded how we did the work or not. And that's, to me, not all classes, especially not undergrad, are like that. But that's a space to say, if you were in that online course, I wouldn't want to just check in every week because I have to. I need to be doing the work I need to do. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's where, again, to your point, that's why we build in scaffolding. And we do still... I will continue to say this. If I see anybody who's like, I'm going to build an online course where, like, they pretty much just watch stuff for weeks and then they submit one big project. No, that's a bad idea. That's no. You still need check-ins. You still need all that stuff.
They don't have to pay to do that. If they're paying to do something, it should be challenging.
Do that on YouTube. So, like, it should be those components where there's check-in, there's feedback, there's all those types of components. But I think in online courses, it's not as complicated as we make it. It's that component. Are they engaging with the work that's there each week? And if they are, then I count them as present. Even if and I don't feel like that's a big debate necessarily. I think that's pretty obvious to most people. Like, are they engaging in things? But that's why I don't like some of the methods that are like, we're gonna set up this activity every single week to make sure that they're present. It's like, and then those activities also don't really become present activities. They're like, here's a quiz, click through it, and if you do it, you're present.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the thing that I've seen some people do as well. And it's like, well, are they? I mean, I could do that and then not do any of the work.
Right.
That would be like,
that's like the
to your
kid.
point, that would be like somebody coming in and looking at their phone the whole class. And an instructor would not count them as present. And that's why I think we need to still funnel them through the instructor, the person who is responsible for the facilitation and teaching of the online course. We need to trust them to be able to do that and give them the tools to be able to do that.
You are
so
both.
It's also not cumbersome.
You are both arbiter and gatekeeper, right? You're the one that needs to go forward and take care of the stuff, and also be the one that checks everything. Like, it's a good balance. It's a tough thing to be a teacher, especially today. But I think that one of the things that, like, this is a moment in history where there's a lot of job change, a lot of folks leaving education, a lot of folks getting laid off, and so job markets are changing. It's crazy right now when I look on LinkedIn. But if you want to stand out in an online school or in an online program right now as an instructor, just be on top of these things. Stay on top of these procedures. In a sense, be compliant with whatever your school requires. But beyond that, take it the step further and care, show up, ask after your students, or not dog them, not hunt them down. You don't have to be their babysitter, but there's nothing connecting them to you unless you connect to them.
Yeah.
They might make the effort, they might. But if you want to make sure that they're there, the best thing is be present. And ask them things and show up in the forums and prompt them and give them opportunities to show that they're present. We don't even need to know what an absence is if we just stay on it like that. We take the proactive approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boom.
Boom. There we go. Problem solved. I don't know why we've been debating about this all this time in higher ed.
Do we even need an episode? We should just
people just needed to come to the High Tech Podcast. We've now solved the problem. So. There you go. You're welcome, world. So
never again will you need to deal with this issue.
Never again. For sure. So with that said, now, Will, I feel like it's time to pull up the app table, to clear the air a bit, as we said.
Oh yeah.
And talk about our next app, which is called Table Air. No, I'm sure.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Surprise. They just changed their name just a second ago.
I'm gonna put it out like this, okay? Once, years ago, I used Airtable 3 times. I just looked at it.
I actually didn't know that.
I don't even remember who was using it or why, but like I remember, and I was like, oh, this thing's cool. And then I just forgot about it for years. And so this week we have another, like Notion, another Josh special where he shows up, he takes this thing on, and you're just using it to the umpteenth. I mean, like, the systems that this guy and his team have made in this tool drive me nuts. I want them. I'm jealous. I think that this is fantastic. So that's like all I've got to say about this. I touched it once, and now it's Josh's thing. It's beautiful.
There it is. I can't take total ownership for it. I did not find this tool. One of our friends who I work with is the one who brought it to the team, and we found it. And then I was just counting, Will, while you were talking, just out of curiosity. So Airtable, I'll explain a little bit more about Airtable here in a second, but Airtable has like these things called bases. They're basically different environments you set up. We have 38 of them. So now, some of the stuff we do with Airtable, not necessarily what we're going to talk about today, because I work on a design team that develops online courses, and we'll talk about some of it.
Cliff notes us, right? Give us a little, like, the things we do generally.
Yes, so for those of you who don't know what Airtable is, first of all, think about that. I mean, you know, like Excel Online, or if you ever heard of Smartsheet, or tools like that. I mean, Airtable's in similar realm, except significantly better.
It's a spreadsheet tool. It's columns and rows.
It's a data tool, columns and rows. You'd open it up and it'd look very similar to an Excel document that you've seen.
And that's where the resemblance ends, pretty much.
Basically, yes. It's also, you can use it for forms. You can use it for project management. You can use it for a whole bunch of things. It's very popular in marketing worlds right now for like marketing management, like media management and things like that. It's a collaborative tool at its core. But cliff notes of how our team uses it. So we basically track all of our courses. So the team I work on, we produce online courses. So we work with a subject matter expert. We've talked about what an instructional designer is before. We've had Robin Jeffers on, who's part of our team. We build courses. We do all that type of fun stuff. We need to be able to track all of that at a high level. So we do that in Airtable. So we bring in all of our data from our student information system on scheduled courses. We bring in data on courses that are supposed to be designed. We track them at that level. We do a whole bunch of stuff. We basically run Canvas from Airtable. We've
Just a little thing.
Just a little thing. And we've now been automating a lot of things. Airtable does a lot of automation. And we use some other tools to do all of this as well. But we have just recently automated like populating content into courses and building activities. And a whole bunch of other fun things. We're actually currently building out a course management system where faculty can put in requests on courses, and there's an automated approval system. So anyway, there's all this fun stuff. If you're working in the world that Will and I work in like designing courses, online learning, that type of stuff, Airtable has a lot of benefits in that world. But I'd like to focus on where I think it could be helpful in education as well for the average instructor. Because if you're listening to this and you're just a teacher, you're like, what? Yeah, no, I'm going to shut this episode off now. Don't. I promise.
Hang on. One second.
So, that's Airtable, okay? At the biggest piece. I think here's my key to why I like Airtable. I think it's why I also like Notion, if I'm really being honest. I like things that can bring order out of chaos, okay? And Airtable is fantastic at bringing order out of chaos. The reason it's a lot better than an Excel document is because there's a lot of features that you can get in it. You can do a lot more stuff. There's like, you can create what we call like select fields and things with categories and tags and a whole bunch of fun stuff. But it's great for just organizing information, pulling together things. I think here's a good example of how I've seen a program use it. So we actually helped our education department adopt Airtable, and they had this problem where across their program, in internships, they needed to track student hours across multiple courses. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. This was a long-standing problem. Okay?
I remember providing like 2 or 3 solutions to this over the time, like, and then none of them were ever good enough.
Yeah, well, we solved it. So it was through
amazing.
And I wish we could replicate it more because we stopped solving it because then they kept coming to us with questions. We didn't have time for it, so we stopped that, and I'm sorry. But they still use it on their end. And basically what it was is they needed a way to track hours across multiple courses. Like they had students who were going through different levels of the internship. And the original way they were doing this was through submitting, I think, like PDFs with the hours in them. And then the department assistant for the department would like go into the courses and see what the hours were and then like give them a grade based on that, and they would like track it.
This was happening at your school? No,
no, okay.
Maybe I don't want to admit to it. It sounds familiar. It sounds familiar. No, that's the solution that they were using at my next institute. After I left y'all, the next place I went to was using that, and I tried to get them off of that. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
So what we did with Airtable was we were like, okay, you need a quick way to track hours. You need a way for people to see stuff without everybody having accounts. And so what we did was we used Airtable. We created, they call it a base, but it's essentially like a grouping of tables, right? And so we created a table where they could, and then created a form from that. So you can create forms just like you can in Google Forms or Microsoft or whatever tool that you're used to using. You create a form, but what we did is we created a form, and then you can do some what we call formula work in Airtable, but it's essentially the same thing as like Excel functions, except Airtable guides you through the process. It's a little bit easier to do it in Airtable. And so we set up some simple stuff.
It's plug and play, right? Like it's like
it's kind of plug and play.
Click on this, add
some
that.
Stuff you can go way beyond, which is what we do, but there's some basic stuff that you can do that's pretty easy.
Cool.
And so all we did was basically like they could select in the form who their advisor was. They could specify how many hours they did, what week, and then they could submit. They still needed to submit a PDF of some information. They could do that in the form, and then it all went into this database. And then what we did is you could create a share link for each table. And so what they did is they provided that to each advisor. It was set to filter down by the advisor. They provided that to the advisor. Advisor just keeps that static link at all times, and then they open it up and they can search by a student, and it groups them together so they can see immediately how many hours they have. And then that tracked it across multiple courses. So they were able to track it across different course programs of what they were doing. So that was kind of a programmatic level, but there's absolutely other ways you could use this as an instructor. If there's any kind of like data pieces that you're needing to pull together or aggregate beyond like grading, normal grades,
right?
Airtable's a great tool for this.
That's awesome.
And because they have stuff like forms and calendars and basic tools that you can end up using, and they allow people to upload files and videos and things into the tool.
There's a calendar functionality?
Yeah, there is. They have a calendar, like they call it views, is basically what they call it. So my piece is this may not be for everybody. There's absolutely a ton of people who would find no use for Airtable. But I think what's cool about highlighting Airtable is if you need to do any kind of like data tracking at all, or kind of bring together information outside of your LMS, Airtable's a great way to do that. We also know institutions who have like turned Airtable into their student information system, and it's like
that's nuts. When I think about the like requirements of an SIS, a student information system, I'm like, are you kidding me? How?
There's so much you can do in it, and that's the piece. I think it's another like Notion tool where the reason I think I like it is because there's a lot of just limitless things you can do inside Airtable. And it depends on what level you want to go. If you're an instructor who doesn't want to learn a bunch of stuff and you just want to track information, or you want to poll students, you want to do whatever, Airtable's a great form tool to be able to do that, and it's pretty simple to use that tool to do that.
That's amazing.
So I know people who do financial budget stuff through Airtable because it's easier. Like they can track stuff through Airtable pretty well.
It sounds like it as much as we see it from a technical or administrative side, like you could have your students use this not only for like tracking hours, administrative stuff but like if they need to do a project management, they could use this as like a central spot for their team to work together. And one of the things you mentioned early on that I think is a strength of it as well, many I think modern platforms are really trying to get a sense of this, is like the external user, not requiring everybody who uses it to have an account is pretty important. And so like students, if they were working with people outside of the institution, or if they had some sort of bigger project that's not with all students just in their class or something, like they could have more people work on the Airtable without needing to pay more money, having more accounts, facilitating it all themselves that way. So I love tools that do this kind of stuff. Yeah, very technical, very data driven, but Airtable, the stuff I've seen Josh do with it, fantastic. The stuff that I know you could do with it just from a data side, like I've worked in similar tools. I work in spreadsheets a lot. I love the power of a spreadsheet. Even Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel are still a lot more powerful than most people think they are. And like Google does some really cool stuff anymore with like linking sheets to sheets, and you can not only reference stuff across sheets within a workbook, but you can reference workbooks across workbooks. Like those are pretty cool things but you're still to me the joke is you're still using Google Sheets in a way it's not designed to. Airtable is designed to do this. It is a database tool, not just
all that
a workbook
stuff that
tool.
Will just said. There are actually official systems.
It's
for it
built in, right?
Like you can link different tables to each other. You can have a table look up information from another table. You can even now combine data from multiple tables into one. That's what we do. I mean, we have information. Another practical use, if you're not necessarily a teacher, but we use Airtable for this. If you're in the field where you're like tracking like ed tech tools, or you need like a database of tools with system information, we do that. We have all of our requests for external tools in our courses tracked in Airtable.
Dang.
Airtable allows you to create like a gallery view of your information and embed it in other sites. So we do that.
Wow.
So that people can click on that.
That really connects to some projects I've been a part of in the past, like around like the humanities and like digital. What was the term? Not digital literacy. Digital. Oh, it's not going to come to me. But like you literally what you're just saying, like having students create digital portfolios or galleries of cultural movements, cultural experiences. They're using pretty complex stuff like Scalar or even WordPress with certain plugins. Just make a Airtable database, like done. And if you can make a linked view that's a gallery, beautiful.
Yeah, and you can link that in a bunch of different places and change it pretty quickly from your database, and it'll change there. I mean, that's what we do with our external tools. I was gonna say, I know some instructors who have used it to like track resources and reading lists and things for students. So like if they have several resources that they use between courses, right? Like for different topics, Airtable's a great tool to use for that. You can tag things by topic, create views for different classes, and easily update them instantly all from that database, right? So like that's something that you can do pretty easily.
That reminded me of Justin's library. Justin
I forgot that he did this.
Used Airtable to make a library, and he tagged all of the books that he has in his library and put QR codes on them. And when he loans a book out to someone,
I forgot about this.
He uses Airtable to track who he gave it to and like what it is and where it is. Like, so
he had a pretty sweet system. And
asset management.
Justin's a techie. But Justin's not doing nearly the same stuff that we're doing in Airtable, so that's a good example of like it didn't take him. Airtable had something already set up for that. Like somebody had something they had done.
Just used a template or something.
Because Airtable has a lot of templates that you can duplicate from other people.
I bet the hardest part of that was just printing all of the QR codes, cutting them in nice, neat
putting them on
squares and putting them on his books. He used that a ton.
You have people check out books all the time, and he actually embeds that now, if I remember correctly, on his site. For the
Amazing.
Center for Teaching,
so people can request books.
So people can look it up and look up the information. Another use that we found out of it was we actually did training registration for this. So if you're somebody who's looking to like train faculty or you're in that type of area, we ran training through Airtable. What we did is we created a form that had like a select tool that you can set up through Airtable that had all the trainings, so somebody could go into the singular form, look up what trainings
pick
were
the
available.
session they want.
Yeah, there was an embedded calendar view that we had on our site, and we updated it from Airtable in our database, and it would update across all these forms, and then people could just sign up for them as they popped up. And it would show them the time, it would show them who it was for, it would give a description of the training, and we could embed that anywhere we wanted with a form, and people could sign up for it, click on it. And then I was actually able in the detailed in Airtable to set up that it would aggregate everybody that was registered for the trainings. And we went as far as setting up, because we got tired of having to figure out how many people were coming to trainings and figuring out when we should cancel and not. We actually set up an Airtable that we had a minimum number for registrations. And if that number was not met by 7 days before the training, Airtable would auto send a canceled notice to the person who should cancel the training, and the training would get canceled. So
that's beautiful.
Anyway, there's a lot that you can do with it, and it's not that hard. So pricing options, real quick for Airtable. There is a free version for Airtable. You get unlimited bases in it that you can try. You get 5 people that you can invite into your area to like edit things and create things. They have different levels of permissions in Airtable, and creators and editors, you don't need to pay for them, so you can bring them in. You get 5 of those. And that's about it. You get a couple things. There's a lot of stuff you can't do. There's some attachment size limits and things like that. But for context, the education example I gave earlier, that was all done through free Airtable. So we did not do that through our paid account. So free can get you a good bit. But then they have a couple other things like a basic personal plan, a pro plan, which is what our office has. And then there's a higher enterprise and education plan that you can use in the tool. So
wow. Dude, that's awesome. Thank you for setting that up for us and advocating for amazingness in general. Okay, this time around, we are ready to wrap up the episode. We appreciate you, as always, being with us from episode to episode. Next time, we are going into episode 65. We'll be discussing user experience and not singing My Brick House joke, because that's our subtitle on this episode content. Building the house. User experience is about building the house. Tune in to hear what that means. Our app will be Microsoft Office Lens, another Josh special coming to us. We can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make it, but it's
well,
we use it.
It's an if Josh came up with the app, That's a Josh
Okay,
special.
Yeah, it's just special.
As always, find us on Twitter at High Tech Podcast. Make sure to subscribe, like us, connect with us. We're trying to do some more content there, so please do follow and interact. Email us at inbox@hightechpod.us or go to our website, hightechpod.us. Ha! Got you. I said it.
It was there. I was just giving a little delay.
Okay. Okay.
It's fine.
Until next time, folks, this is Will and Josh, as always, with the High Tech Podcast. Thank you for joining us for another week as we continue to learn what it looks like to harness technology in the classroom, whether our students are there online or in person. Until next time, see ya.
See ya.